going on, my friends? Now 3 o'clock. Trailblazers have concluded their 2023-24 season. Exit interviews today. Joe Cronin said they are committed to Chauncey Billups next season and discussed the process for developing the roster this offseason.
How much are our guys developing? How quickly is Scoot coming along? How quickly is Shaden coming along? What transactions do we make this offseason? What does that look like? How talented can we become in the near future? And we're going to have to recalibrate that after this offseason and get a more accurate viewpoint of, okay, what is this roster really capable of?
We got more coming up on the Rip City Drive. NBA Draft Lottery is coming up on Sunday, May 12th. Trailblazers and Hornets will need a coin toss to determine the third and fourth slot in the order. Grayson Allen has agreed to a new 4-year, $70 million deal with the Suns. From baseball, longtime radio voice John Sterling has retired. On Jackie Robinson Day, the Mariners host the Reds' first pitch at 6:42 up at T-Mobile Park. George Kirby on the bump for Seattle. Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad's coming at you right now. We got a 4-pack of tickets for the Hops to give away. I'm a free man, Godfather. Finally,
Congratulations.
after 6 months of covering the Portland Trailblazers, I am a free man as of about 1 o'clock this afternoon when the exit interviews ended, and I left the practice facility to head over to the station. And tomorrow morning, for the first time, I will walk out on the golf course and begin my golf season. So as you might imagine right now, I'm feeling pretty good.
You've got your tea time already.
I've been waiting for this for a long time.
Locked in. Huh?
I am locked, cocked, locked, and ready to rock, man. I am ready to rock, Godfather.
Congrats.
I spent a ton of money on supplies. I have everything I need for tomorrow morning. So I'm pumped, man. I'm really looking forward to it. And now it's so strange. You've done this longer than I have, but when you're knee deep into a basketball season, once it starts, it's all go for 6 months. And then in an instant, it ends. Like there's no transition. You go from all in to the very next day, it's over.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre, the transition, how frightening it is to go from one extreme to the next in a matter of 24 hours. But it feels really good.
Yeah, it's funny. In a couple of weeks, you'll start thinking, it wasn't so bad. By next season, you'll say, God, I can't wait for the season to come.
Yeah. It's weird how we go through those transitions. Yeah. And then you get the reminder of like, oh, no, this is what I'm in for. So we got a lot in the Trailblazers. I was over at the practice facility today.
I can't wait to hear. You got a lot of tape. Hey, Chet, I was looking at some of your videos on X today. You know, you do pretty well with those videos. It's almost like you've been practicing on some concerts.
I have.
Yeah.
The Eagles have given me plenty of practice over the years on how to utilize my phone when recording different types of material, which is terrific. Now, with the exit interviews, the one thing that popped up, no matter whether it was Joe Cronin, Coach Billups, or the players, just the overall difficulty of trying to go through a season when you have numerous injuries. Second worst in the league in terms of games lost due to injury, no continuity. You never knew night to night who was going to be on the floor, and you could tell just by talking to the guys how much of a grind that is and how difficult it is when you got to take the floor and not really have that chemistry that you so desperately desire when you're playing a basketball game. So I feel for the guys, especially the coach, in having to go for that type of season. It's tough. It was tough on me to watch because there was no continuity. And for the players and coaches and everyone that has to go through it, what a grind that is. And you've been through different seasons where sometimes the injury bug hits harder than others, but this year was a bad one.
Yeah, Chad, I remember the start of the season and all the things we talked about where winning and losing isn't going to be an issue. It's going to be player evaluations. And we couldn't wait to see, well, can Scoot play with Ant? Can Ant play with Brogdon?
Yeah.
How is this all going to piece together? I'm sure the team wanted to do the same thing. They never got a chance. It never happened. None of these things happened because of all the injuries.
Yes. Even Cronin mentioned in terms of raw data and the way that you want to evaluate your players and stuff, it was hard for them to gather the necessary data because of these significant injuries. And then with certain lineup combinations that were on the floor, you can't really get a true feedback on what you got. And that makes it difficult to do your job as you continue to press forward and shape the roster. Hideous.
Yeah, and you got to feel for Chauncey Billups sitting there on the bench, looking down to see who he's got, who can play on a given night. That was impossible.
Impossible. And you could tell that it was wearing on him. In fact, he said something that jumped out to me where when I signed up to be coach of the Portland Trailblazers, I didn't come in with the intentions of losing 50 plus games in 3 straight seasons. That wasn't the plan. But things change. And then all of a sudden you go from being a coach of a veteran team to being a teacher of young guys who are entering the NBA, who don't understand the game. And that's a different type of role. And for a guy like Chauncey, for a lot of athletes, especially an ex-athlete who was used to winning and known as a winner, the losing grinds on them. And there were a number of players who even mentioned that the losing is tough. In fact, Jabari Walker said, I don't want the losing to become normal to me. Like, you don't want that because it's not fun. Everyone has more fun when they're winning basketball games. And when you're losing and you drop 61 games in a season, it's a grind.
Well, I look back to what you said at the beginning. Chauncey Billups came in here to coach a playoff team.
Mm-hmm.
He had Dame and CJ and that long run of playoff appearances by this team. And trust me, it wasn't because of Chauncey Billups that they didn't make the playoffs that year.
Yeah.
And
Injuries.
it never has been the fault of him that they didn't make the playoffs.
No, I'm on an island on this one, but, Chauncey's learned a lot over the first few years in the league. He'll be back next year for a 4th season. I think he's a good coach. I think he communicates well with his players. They all respect him. And I think he's done a good job with the young guys. If he had a team that had more talent and was injury-free, he would win more basketball games. But that has not been the process or the pathway for him so far in Portland. So I do feel for him there because I like Chauncey. I do. I like the guy. And I think he's got a chance to become a really good head coach.
I have a lot to say about it. We'll say some of it later in the show, but I just believe you can take whoever you want. Eric Spoelstra. I don't know. Take whoever you want. Put him in here as the head coach. They're not going to win many more games than they want.
Not with the roster he had to work with.
The talent's just not here.
No, I think Spoelstra is the good name to use there. He's the best coach in the NBA. We all agree on that. If you put him in charge of this team with the injuries they had, it would be the same result. Coaches need players to win games.
Yeah. Yeah, and I give Chauncey a lot of credit for just not throwing his hands in the air and saying, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
I'm a young coach. I can't take all these losses on my record.
Uh-huh.
You think he wants to lose 50 to 60 games a year?
No, of course not.
No coach does.
No. So we got more on that. We'll get to Joe Cronin coming up here at 3:20, and then we'll deal with Chauncey Billups coming up at 5 o'clock. We got a lot on the exit interviews. Let's talk a little Masters from yesterday. Scotty Scheffler, unquestioned number 1 player in the world right now. He was terrific. And if you look at the rest of the season with the majors, he's going to win another one this year. He's playing that well from tee to green, the iron striking. He's better with the short game and the putting now. He just looks terrific. And what I thought was great about yesterday, he just didn't make the big mistake in the final round. And everyone that was around him trying to challenge him came up with the wrong shot at the wrong moment to knock them out of contention. And Scheffler just stayed strong and got the job done.
They mentioned a statistic about him that I had never even heard of the stat. They said he has the best bounce back rate of anybody on the tour. That means after he does have a bad hole, and for him, a bad hole is a bogey, okay? After that, he comes right back better than anybody else does, gets right back on track. As a golfer, myself and you, I'm sure, understand the same thing. You got to make sure that bogey, or in my case, triple bogey, doesn't just destroy the next 3 holes you play.
100%. I've never heard of the bounce back rate. What a great stat that is.
Yeah.
It took me about 3 years to really hone in on this with my coach, and it started last year. I take more pride now in getting off to a bad start or having a double or a triple bogey because it used to really tick me off and it would destroy me. But what I love now is taking a bad hole, putting it behind you, and moving on to the next shot. And when I can overcome that, there's nothing that feels better than that. When I look back at a bad start and a strong finish, I'm like, dude, I overcame mentally what I needed to do to accomplish what I was looking to do. And so when I see a golfer do that, I'm like, man, that takes some stones because it bothers you, man.
Absolutely.
It's deep in your soul. Those guys want to win so bad. And when you go out there with that type of talent and you make a bad decision or a bad shot, or you don't listen to your caddy, or your caddy gives bad advice, or whatever the case may be, it drives them crazy. So you've got to be able to let it go because there's plenty of shots that are ahead.
Yeah, you look at Morikawa, who's just staying with him through the whole front 9, and then he hits the ball in the water. And for the next 3 holes, it didn't show. Actually, he did okay the next 3 holes, but you could read it in his body language.
Yeah.
He all of a sudden he's down, and it's like, well, I can't win this thing now.
Yeah.
It's over.
Yeah.
I'll play for third or whatever. And he didn't even finish second.
Yeah, and that's what my coach told me. He goes, "Hey, because I run a little bit hot, and so
Yeah.
he would tell me like, hey, how many times do you swing the club on the course?" And I'm like, "I don't know. It depends on the day." He's like, "Yeah, you're going to swing it 80 times. If you're having a good day, maybe 78 times."
Or in my case, 110 times. Yeah.
Yeah. He goes, "And you're on the course for how long?" I'm like, 4 hours. He's like, "Okay, so you're going to spend like maybe 30 minutes of your day on the course swinging the golf club. What are you going to do for the rest of the 3.5 hours or 3 hours and 40 minutes you're on the course? You're going to worry about the bad shot you hit on hole 2?" He's like, "No, that's not the way you approach it." He goes, "I'm a good golfer." And he goes, "Most of the shots that I plan on hitting are not exactly what I
Yeah.
planned on hitting." He goes, "You just got to learn to realize that you're going to have moments where you hit a great shot. You'll have moments where you're in between. You'll hit a bad shot. It doesn't matter. You got to move up, continue to apply your process, and let that stuff go. Because good shots will come, bad shots will come. You can't let it affect you like that."
I can't tell you how many people, mostly pros, have told me, "You're not good enough to get mad." Really, if you're lousy, and most of us out there in the course are, compared to pros, lousy.
Oh, of course.
We're not any good, really. If your handicap's over 15, you're really just more toward average. Can't get upset about fluffing a shot.
No, it's going to happen. Even when the good players do it, they hit bad shots. I do want to say this, and I know a lot of people are bashing on him or trying to figure out why he's even out there on the course in the condition that he's in right now with his physical ailments and the injuries and so forth. I actually thought what Tiger pulled out this weekend was pretty impressive. Not making the cut. I mean, it's great that he's had 24 straight Masters where he's made the cut. That's amazing. But I thought after what he did when he put up a career worst 82 on Saturday, I thought he's going to bail. He'll announce he's pulled up lame and he's going to exit the tournament and not stick around. That's what I thought. He showed up on Sunday and grinded out the rest of his round, even though he finished last among all the people that made the cut. And to me, he won me over even more as a golfer for being able to do that because his son was there, with
Yeah.
him. And I think he was trying to send the message that, hey, in our family, we don't quit.
Right.
You got to stick it through. Even when you're having a bad round, you've got to stick it out and continue to go through your process. And so I was impressed with Tiger because I thought for sure after Saturday, that debacle, that he was going to shut it down. He did not. He fought through and grinded. And I
Yeah.
respect the heck out of that.
Yeah, I was even going to ask you today, and I get your point, and I hadn't really thought of it, but you're absolutely right. Tiger Woods can't quit. And he's got Charlie there. He can't show Charlie he's a quitter, that's for sure.
No.
But my thought was, it was cool to set a record for most consecutive cuts made at the Masters. But at some point over the weekend, don't you wonder if he thought, geez, it might have been better to miss the cut than to come out here and be last, 18 over par, 2 worse than anybody else out here.
Yeah, I think you earn the respect of your counterparts when you're out there doing that because they
Yeah.
know what he's going through. Just physically, the fact that he made it through 4 straight days at the Masters is amazing.
Tell you what else is amazing, walking over to Vern Lundquist on 16 and shaking his hand and congratulating him on his great career, 40 years doing Masters.
One of the all-time boss moves by Tiger to show
Absolutely.
respect to a legend. Vern Lundquist is part of the soundtrack of my life, and he was elite at calling any sport that he stepped behind
Sure.
the mic on.
Real good.
Terrific.
Real good in basketball, actually.
NBA basketball, college basketball, football, NFL. He did Bronco preseason games for a number of years, too. I love the guy. He's awesome. He's one of those guys like Dick Enberg or, Stockton, all the guys I grew up with, right? Legends. He is a legend. And you could tell how grateful he was to have an opportunity to have a voice at the Masters for all these years.
Yeah, and what a class move by Tiger to go over and shake his hand. That meant more to him than anything his own network said.
Yeah, the
probably.
Tiger took a moment to recognize, hey, I appreciate your work,
Right.
and I'm glad that you were a part of many of my great victories out here at the
Yeah.
Masters, including the pitch shot in 2005 when he holed out on shot number 2 when his ball was stuck. The back of his ball was up against the long rough, and he somehow managed to chip it in. It was a ridiculous shot. And
Yeah.
Vern Lundquist with a terrific call. What a
Yeah.
legend that guy is. All right, we'll keep things rolling. When we come back, Exit interview day over at the practice facility. We're going to focus in on Joe Cronin here in the Rip City Drive.
these guys are at.
All right, we got a 4-pack of tickets for your Hillsboro Hops tomorrow. If you'd like to sit in the Rip City Radio row for tomorrow's game, Hops, over at Hillsboro Hops Stadium, you can call now. We'll take the first caller through. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. Fire away with your calls right now for a 4-pack of tickets for the Hops. You can sit in the Rip City Radio row. 503-248-0620. Call now, and Shacker will get your information. All right, Joe Cronin at the exit interview. First off, he did say that they're committed to Chauncey Billups for next year. We'll deal more on that comment coming up at 5 o'clock when we discuss Chauncey Billups. But of all the things he said, that was probably the one item that got more reaction from the fans than anything else.
That's
you might
controversial right now, isn't it?
It is, because the majority of fans on social media, and most of the fans I speak with, honestly, they don't understand why Billups is still the coach.
Yeah, they're blaming the losses on Chauncey Billups,
which I think is crazy. That's
Yeah.
what I truly think. So let's walk through a few of these comments. We'll start with this, with Cronin. Here's his opening statement before he started taking questions, so you can kind of get a background on where he's at and what he was thinking.
All right. 23-24 season is over. Up and down year, but continue to be really excited and optimistic about where we're headed. The goal, throughout this season with this pretty much brand new group was essentially develop these guys, turn them into functional high-end basketball players, and then also start establishing our identity. How do we play? How do we gel together? Where are we headed? Those types of things. Individually, there were a lot of successes. Scoot Henderson's last 20 games, DeAndre Ayton post All-Star break, Shaden Sharp's first 20 games, Toumani Kamara's entire season, Chris Murray's emergence late, Ryan Rupert shooting the ball better, Delano Banton post-trade deadline. So we're seeing a lot of good things happen throughout our roster. We just need to get that more frequent, more consistent, and happening more often throughout, from two ways all the way to the top of our roster. We've just got to keep getting better, and that's our challenge this offseason. We're going to continue to be aggressive and optimistic, looking for ways to improve this roster for the near future and the long term. And once again, we're just really excited about what we've accomplished thus far, and know we have a lot of work to do, but we're well on our way.
All right, there's Joe Cronin's opening statement, reactions to some of his comments, identifying some of the individual successes, talking about their goals of the season, wanting to develop an identity in terms of how they play and what they're looking to accomplish moving forward.
Yeah, I would agree with some of that. I'm not sure they developed an identity of how they want to play. I don't think they had enough time together to really do that.
Yeah.
I don't think we saw the players together that they are kind of relying on in the future.
Yeah.
So I would say that he's excited about the future. He seems to like where they are. That's a tough sell for me too, because I think they have a long way to go. Basically, now they've got a start, and it also it depends on where. There's a lot of people who think this is the first year of a rebuild. I don't subscribe to that theory. I watched them tank 2 years previously to this year.
It's probably year 3. You can make an argument.
That's my argument, Chad. They're going to base it on the fact that Dame, this is the first year without Dame, but basically the 2 years previously, they were somewhat without him in those years.
How do you think it's best to handle a situation where you're truly going to rebuild, which they're doing right now? I guess it depends on the circumstances. Do you tell the fan base, hey, we're going to rebuild and we're going to strip it down? Do you mask your true plans with creative language? What is the best way to do that in terms of how you handle that? Because I can see why it'd be very difficult for an owner to just come out and say, hey, just be honest and tell them exactly what we're doing. Hey, we're going to strip it down. We're going to be playing some rough basketball for a few years, but it's going to allow us to get to where we want to be? Or do you say, hey, take the approach of, hey, we're still looking to improve. We want to continue to upgrade the roster with avoiding the possibility that next year could be another rough season? How do you do that?
I I don't know the real answer because no one's really ever done it that way, Chad, and said from the start, "Hey, we're gonna go to the bottom of the barrel and start
Maybe
climbing up
Philadelphia
again."
when they said trust the process.
That was as close as anybody's come. But
Yeah.
the idea was grab a hold of the process, and actually, it did work.
Yeah.
It did work, but
Yeah.
it took a lot longer than people thought. And
Yeah.
my impression is it almost always takes longer than you think or you hope it will be. I think it's real easy to just say, look, we got a lot of young players. It's going to be exciting to watch them develop. We're doing the best we can to win as soon as we can. But the fact is, we're short of talent, and we just need to attract more. And the only way for us to get it, and here's the really rock bottom, the only way for the Portland Trailblazers to get more talent is the draft. You can trade? Sure, you can trade. But you're going to give up something to get something. And they've been doing that and haven't really added a lot of pieces that'll be with you in the future. So it's going to be the draft. The only way to make it through the draft is to get good picks.
You draft the foundation, and then you use trades and free agency to augment.
Yeah.
And for a small market team, that's the way it's got to be.
It does. There's
And-
no shortcut here.
No, there's no shortcut. The funny thing is, a lot of the same fans who wanted a change,
Yeah.
they wanted them to trade Dame, they wanted a rebuild. Then when you start going through the rebuild, they suddenly don't want the rebuild.
That's so true, Chad.
It's a difficult process. A rebuild is tough, but 3 years in, like, I'm all about don't pull out of it too soon. If you need to go another year to make sure you have access to the talent next year, I'm all about that. But it's a
Well-
hard sell to some fans.
Of course it is. And especially this year with, I think, a treasure trove of good players available next year.
Yeah.
Look, they've been bad 3 years in a row. You're probably going to have to adjust to being bad again. That's probably the way it's going to work because those players, a couple of them, are going to be turnaround kind of players.
Yeah.
I believe Cooper Flagg's one of them. The other one will be among 4 or 5 players that look really good right now.
But everyone agrees that 4 or 5 players in next year's draft all would be selected ahead of anyone in this year's draft,
Exactly.
including Sarr.
No question.
All right, here is Cronin further talking about the plan, whether you're looking to develop, you're looking to win. Aaron Finch was persistent in trying to get an answer. Here's
Good for
what
him.
Cronin had to say.
It's going to be a similar approach that we took to the trade deadline. Like, if the right player is available, if the right deal is there, if that player fits our timeline, and our timeline being short term, medium term, and long term, if that player fits with what we're trying to build, we will gladly go out and get that player. But that player has to make sense, from A, what does it take to get him, and B, how does he work towards our cap, and C, how does he fit with this group moving forward? So I don't think, once again, like we're not talented enough to be dismissive of any upgrades. And I will look at those, but they do need to fit a certain criteria that they can grow with this group.
Now, the way I read that is exactly what you and I have talked about, eyeing young players.
Yeah.
The player like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, a young player that may not be getting the playing time in a different city, but if given the time can develop into a potential star. You're looking for those type of young players that fit the same similar age range of Scoot and all the other guys on the roster that you think are going to be here long term. Not going out and bringing in a veteran who's in his late 20s or early 30s who could help you win a few more games this year, but is going to be gone soon and doesn't match up with the timeline.
Exactly. And he threw out criteria there that are going to be very difficult to meet. He's got to, first of all, he's got to be with the timeline. So he's going to have to be a young player, has to fit cap wise, all of that. And what are you going to have to give up to get him?
Yeah.
Now, even if that guy's available, if you have to give up your number 1 pick next year, no thanks. if you have to give up Scoot to get him, I'd pass on that.
And I agree with your point you made last week. If you can make a move with some of the assets you have now to acquire more draft capital for next year, feel
That's
free
what
to do that.
That's what I'd be after. I'd be all in on getting more picks next year. That's the OKC thing. It wasn't just trading for future picks. It was trading for a bushel basket full of draft picks.
Yeah.
I mean, they go into drafts with 4 or 5 picks, 6 picks even. Man, that helps you hedge against drafting mistakes.
100%, because it's like the shotgun approach. If I take
Yep.
more players, they're not all going to hit, but at least 1 or 2 of them might.
You increase your chances of one of them hitting, and that's a big deal in my opinion. It really, when you start trading now, you really put the pressure on your scouts to be able to get that right guy, because those things don't always work. Let's face it.
All right.
I would trade Chad. Anybody on this roster right now, if I could get more assurance of a top 5 lottery pick next year, those weak teams, what do you want? And you know who those teams are right now. Detroit. Yeah. What they want to get better right away. They've been tanking a long time. You want Aiden? You want Brogdon? You want a 2nd round pick from me? You can have them. Give me your number 1 pick for next year.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
Yeah. Here's Cronin talking about the 3 guards, Scoot, Ant, Shaden. And we'll hear from Ant later in the show. He was asked about how long those 3 can coexist, but here's Cronin on the 3 guys.
Yeah, I mean, we've learned a lot. The number one thing I've learned is they're all incredibly talented. And I keep saying that. You've probably heard me say talent at least 5 or 10 times this session, but it's true that we're not good enough to be dismissive of any talent throughout our roster. And what we saw from Scoot, Shaden, and Ant together and at different times, I think we saw a lot of high-end potential, and really that's what we're looking for here.
And there was a massive competition with a lot of young forwards. How do you analyze and sort of assess that group?
Yeah, it's a convoluted group in a good way. I think it's one of the big positives of how this season has played out. Tumani came in and essentially won the starting job right out of the gate and got better and better as the season went on. Jabari had a really nice year overall, highlighted by some, I thought, really high-end performances towards the end of the season, especially, obviously he rebounded the ball extremely well, but just in his overall aggressiveness and impact. Chris Murray showed his capabilities on both sides of the ball, like his ability to cover multiple different types of guys, his ability to play off the move offensively, his ability to be a nice glue guy in our league. I think all those things can, benefit us in so many different ways. But at the same time, we've got to figure out, who's playing and who isn't. Like these guys, they still have a lot to prove and a lot to earn. And each of those guys that I named have some deficiencies that they have to address this offseason and moving forward. And, that's the culture we're trying to build is, come in and win your job. And, I told a lot of guys today in the exit interviews, my job is to find somebody better than you.
All right, there's Joe Cronin. So I'm not sure. Do you think they have enough data on the 3 guards to kind of know which direction they want to go?
No, I don't think so, Chad. I don't think they think so either. I think they know they need to get them together more and just let it shake out naturally and see what happens. I think they're gonna try and show us that next season. I love what he said about the forwards. I just caution fans. I think the Blazers know where they stand with those forwards. I think the fans always have a tendency to overrate their own players.
Yeah.
I think all 3 of them show potential to be a starter, maybe in 2 of the 3 cases, a starter. All 3 showed that they could be on a team, even be in a rotation. But don't forget now, this team needs big-time players. If you're going to actually be a playoff team, be a team that can win a championship, you need stars.
Yes.
Now, do any of those 3 look like they're going to be a star to you?
Probably not. And that
Yeah.
goes back to your other point that you should probably be open for business with the entire roster.
Yeah.
Meaning, don't say no to something that could net you more draft picks in next year's draft,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's a player you really like. Now, I do think there are players that are close to untouchable on the roster. Like, I don't expect them to move Scooter Shade
No.
anytime soon.
I don't
And
know.
I think the team truly believes in Tamani Kamara. They know he has things he has to work on, but I think they see a lot of potential in him because of his edge, his defense, and he knows he needs to work on the offensive side. But I think Tamani Kamara's got a chance to be here long term. But outside of a small group, there's flexibility from the standpoint that you can be open to a lot of things with the roster you have if it can net you access to those players in next year's draft.
And you have to be honest with yourself, too. If you want to get something back,
You got to give some up.
exactly, you got to be prepared to give something that might hurt a little bit. It might turn out, one of those guys, you trade him away, might turn out to be a pretty good player. You know what? You got to have enough confidence in what you're doing to say, yeah, he will be a pretty good player. We're gonna trade for a better player. We're gonna get somebody better than him.
Yeah.
That's what you have to do.
Here's Cronin talking about data. Hard to get data when you have the second most games lost due to injury. Here is Joe Cronin.
It's one of our biggest obstacles from this season is we didn't get a ton of data. But as a scout, as a person that evaluates personnel, it's sometimes you only have those small samples to make decisions. You know, when we're scouting an international player and they play 8 minutes in that game and you get more out of warm-ups than you do during the game, sometimes you just have to make decisions based on the data you have and make your best guess. And obviously we have way more data than an 8-minute little subset, but you know, on someone like Shaden, we've got to go off of, 25 healthy games instead of, would have been ideally 75. But I think we still have windows that we can look through in order to give us a feel for what happened.
See, that's tough, isn't it? You got a smaller sample, so you've got to project.
But I appreciate what he says too, and fans have to remember this too. They know a lot more about Shaden Sharp than you do, than I do, than Chad does.
Yeah.
Because they see him every day. They know all about his work ethic. They know about his habits. They know everything about him. So don't be surprised if anything happens with him because they have pretty good knowledge of him right now.
So even though he's had a shortened season, after year number 2, they probably have pretty good intel on what they think he's going to become.
I think they do. Now, they want to see more. Don't get me wrong. They do want to see him for 75 games. But I think they have a lot better impression of what he'll be than we do.
All right, we'll keep things rolling here on the Rip City Drive. We got a lot more on exit interview day, which was a lot of fun. Michael Shacker sending me stories that are highly inappropriate. You should be ashamed for that one, Shacker.
Please share.
He's sending me conjoined twin stories.
Oh, I think we have already had that discussion.
Not about this one.
Oh, really? More?
Yeah. When we come back, we're going to hear from Jabari Walker. He had a great take on off-season work, which is awesome. And probably the happiest guy in the room today, Delano Banton. You talk about a guy that is very thankful for what he got here in Portland. Wow. We're going to hear from both those guys. Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad. All right, Godfather, we have a very special guest that's coming up at 420. You want to give us a little preview of what people can expect at 420? I'm excited about this.
Connor Holden is going to join us at 420. He's the young man, then 14 years old. Actually, I think he might have been mid-13 at the time. He won the 14-15 boys age group drive, pitch, and putt contest at the Masters. He goes to middle school out in Canby. His father's a member of Willamette Valley Golf Club. A little plug for them. And his story is amazing, not only going back there, but his journey as an amateur golfer. And he's a scratch golfer right now. His handicap is like 0.25 or something like that. And
Don't say things that make me hate on him in my mind.
yeah, in the driving competition, he went 275, which is pretty good. So he's going to tell us about his favorite foods at the concession stand, what the Masters was like for him.
And did he hit the concession stand?
Yes, he told me yesterday when I spoke to him.
Oh,
that
good.
he had
Don't
a
give me any details.
He had a particular favorite at the
good.
concession stand.
I could probably take a couple of wild guesses. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
I'm jealous already. He
Yeah.
got to go on Augusta National and bump around
Yeah.
and play golf there.
Yeah.
That doesn't suck. That's pretty good.
I believe the putting competition was held on the actual fast 18th green.
All right, I'll give a large plug for Willamette Valley Country Club. Number one, they should have me out there more often because you don't invite me enough. Number two, the Asian snack mix at the turn
Oh, yeah.
is some of the best Asian snack mix I've ever had in my life. That in combination with an ice cold Diet Coke, which is a delicious beverage in the middle of a summer day on the course is amazing. Like the greens are always nice. Fairways are mint. Beautiful course. Asian snack mix takes the cake. It's beautiful. Thank you, Willamette Valley. We appreciate your efforts.
Well, you also like it that you have a lot of fans out there. Every time you show up, all of a sudden, instant crowd on the driving range. Oh, Chad Doing's here. Oh, yes, great.
I don't mind it. You know, it is nice to be recognized occasionally.
Yeah.
Yeah, because normally when people recognize me, they're like, hey, why'd you say this? You know, I like your show, but, and then they
Yeah.
start telling you all the things they don't like about your show. I get that more from your brother than I do anybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I listened the
I
other
do
day,
too.
and I really wish that you would give me a few more time checks there, Chad. He's the only guy on the planet now asking for time checks. By the way, it's 3:49 here in the River City Drive with Dwight and Chad. There you go, Bruce. I got you. I got your back, baby. So,
Yeah.
I like the Asian snack mix. I
Mhm.
love it. And then your wife, Nancy, always makes sure we got the ice cold Diet Cokes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's got us covered.
Pretty good. All right, I want to play this clip for you. This is the happiest guy at the practice facility. When you're traded from a team where you don't play ever,
Yeah.
and then you arrive at a team where you get nothing but a chance to play, you're going to be pretty happy about that whole scenario. Here is Delano Banton giving out the thanks. I love this.
And I feel like I never missed a beat, when I came here. Obviously trying to get into the flow of things takes some time, but, just treated me as, one that I've been here since the beginning of the year. Felt accepted, so I just want to shout out to everyone for that. Everyone here, dedicated to trying to win, building towards that. Everyone's locked in, grinding, doing their job to the best they can. But we're just trying to figure it out. Grinding this off season. So, it's going to be a good off season. But yeah, man, I had a great time for the half of the season I was here. Put me in a position to be aggressive, show what I can do in this league. And, like I told Joe, I told Chauncey, man, I'm just very, very thankful. They gave me the opportunity to feel like, I was a child out there playing. Like, this is what we dream of. So, yeah, I just always wanted this opportunity. But definitely just trying to piece it together and, contribute to winning next year.
That's pretty cool. That's
Yeah.
a guy who's really happy to get a chance to play in Showcase.
Well, he had his opportunity and he took full advantage of it. He played very well. He made a big impression. I would guess he made an impression on other teams in the league, too.
He did. And I think that's what's great. Anytime you see a young player who goes to a team and gets an opportunity to play, when you get the opportunity, it's great, but you got to cash in on it. And I feel like he made the most of the opportunity here in Portland. Like you said, whether it's for the Blazers or somebody else, now they have a pretty good idea of, hey, this guy can contribute something and he'll get a chance to play more somewhere else. And he did say later in his interview, he understands that when healthy, he's not going to be on the floor getting 20 to 25 shots a night. Like, that's not his role, right?
He won't be able to go 0 for 15 from 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. But that's not his role anyways, and he
Right.
understands that.
Yeah.
Which is cool. But if you're in a situation where you get a chance to fire away, go for it.
And you say that for a reason, Chad, and I make this point often. A lot of these players are in a position that may not ever happen to them again.
Yeah.
Where, even some of the ones that people really like, they may not, when this team gets loaded up with talent,
Yeah.
they may not get as many minutes or as many opportunities. Can they adjust to getting 4 shots a game?
Mhm.
You're in here, you get a 7-minute span. If you don't play well, you might be out of there before the 7 minutes is up. So that changes the whole look of this thing.
So props to Delano Banton, who got a chance to play. I mean, what do you think he can be? Have you seen enough to know?
No, I can't say I've seen enough to know. I love the skill set that he has, and I love his aggressiveness, his willingness to be bold in what he tries. That's one thing that impressed me from the start. He came in here as if he's a good player. It's like only a good player would do what he does: shoot in volume, take the ball aggressively to the basket,
Yeah.
Be aggressive on defense, take chances. He came out and played like he thinks he's a good player.
Yeah.
I love that. That's the way you have to think, or you never will be one.
So when they first acquired him, in my mind, I thought, well, he's probably just a scrub. He's more than that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He's got
All right.
skills.
That's good. He's excited about the opportunity to potentially play for the Canadian national team, too. When you talk to some of these players, they love the opportunity.
Yeah.
A lot of these guys they'll break down doors to get an opportunity to do that.
Canada is really starting to produce a lot of players.
I know that annoys me because I'm not, Canada's like, whatever. I don't care about Canada. It irritates me that Canada and now some of the European nations are gaining on us in the game of basketball.
Yeah, they are.
That's shameful, Godfather.
It sure is.
All right, we'll keep things rolling. When we come back, we're going to focus in on Chauncey Billups. We'll hear from him, and he's going to be back next year, Blazer fans. You happy about that?
A lot of them aren't.
No, they're not. But we'll focus in on Chauncey, talk about some of his difficulties, and I'll tell you why I'm glad he's coming back. You got the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad. All right, the Trailblazers season is over. They now move into the offseason exit interviews today. We're going to hear more from Chauncey Billups, Joe Cronin, and also Jabari Walker later in the program. Joe Cronin did indicate the team is committed to Chauncey Billups next year. NBA draft lottery is coming up on Sunday, May 12th. Trailblazers and Hornets will need a coin toss to determine the third and fourth slot in the order. Grayson Allen has agreed to a new 4-year, $70 million deal with the Suns. From baseball, longtime radio voice John Sterling of the Yankees has retired. It's Jackie Robinson Day. The Mariners will host the Reds. First pitch at 6:42. George Kirby is on the bump for Seattle. We're going to talk Masters with David Coleman. PGA Dave, our PGA insider, coming up at 5:20. All right, want to focus in on Scoot Henderson for a moment. He did his exit interview after the game on Friday, the home finale against the Houston Rockets. How about that game, Godfather? 3 quarters of work for Scoot, 30 points, 7 assists, and he was 6 of 7 from downtown. That's not a bad way to finish out the season. Nice little high note there for Scoot.
Yeah, he continued over the last, 20 games. He was a much different player than he was earlier.
I credit the staff. You know, Chauncey Billups, I think it was after the Miami game, said that they've got to do a better job of putting him in a position to have some success because they didn't want the end of his rookie season to be a disaster. So they went to work on putting him in a better spot. They did that. And I think, that game maybe showed a few glimpses of what's to come, hopefully from Scoot Henderson against the Rockets on Friday.
Yeah, well, the big thing that happened later in the season was he began to get the ball to DeAndre Ayton, who's a scoring machine for them on the second half of the season. And that certainly helped him pile up the assists. Somebody, too, must have been working hard with him on his shooting because his stroke changed a little bit. It got better. And then he himself must have put in an awful lot of time. Shooting changes only with repetition, and I'm sure he got the reps that he needed because he did become a better three-point shooter as the season progressed.
Well, the one thing I've heard from anyone around the team, involved with the team, who is close to the players, people that work with the team, the one thing about Scoot is they don't question his work ethic. This is a guy who, he would fall into the category of guy who loves basketball. Gym rat. He wants to work. He wants to put in the time. He loves playing basketball. So the way it was put to me, I think on Friday was, if Scoot isn't successful, it won't be because he didn't work hard enough. It'll just be because he wasn't good enough to be a dominant NBA point guard. I mean, that's a good problem to have, right? I mean, at least if you have a young guy who's willing to put in the time and the work necessary to improve, you got to feel good about that. I'd rather have that than someone who has all sorts of talent, but you question the work ethic or desire.
Yeah, there's been a few guys like that go through the league, and they never reach their potential.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
I want to play 2 clips for you. This first one here is from Scoot in his exit interview. He was asked, what things do you want to work on during the course of the offseason? And I'll have you share your thoughts on what you think about that. Here's Scoot, exit interview after the game Friday against the Rockets, talking about what he wants to focus on this offseason.
I plan on work on my overall game. Obviously with just ball handle with contact, finishing, explosiveness, quick twitch, mind, my body, and shooting obviously, and really just all over. Watch a film on how I can attack certain situations throughout the system. Yeah.
He basically named everything.
He did, yeah. Yeah, and he needs work on everything, and that's fine. His overall game, he touched on it. He needs to make fewer turnovers. Everybody knows that. But the big thing is finishing at the rim, seeing situations better before he just goes diving into them, knowing when to pull up, when to go all the way to the basket, seeing other players, his shooting, everything. But there's a lot of really good signs on the shooting thing. And that, number one, is how well he shot free throws. That's a great sign for becoming a good three-point shooter. He's a good foul shooter. That helps a lot.
And for a guy who likes to attack. He's going to be at the line a lot.
Yeah. And the fast twitch is really good. He needs to be more explosive. He has that. He just needs to get there when he's at the rim.
Yeah, exactly. Like that
How
one.
many? I'm sorry to interrupt. How many reverse layups did he miss during the season?
More than you can count.
Yeah, and part of that is he's not getting up high enough to make that an easier shot.
Well, my question for you is I wondered in some of those moments where he didn't show the explosiveness, was he thinking too much?
Oh, very likely.
Yeah.
Because players have to learn how, as crazy it is, not to think.
Don't think.
No, it's reaction.
You want to react.
Instinct, it's knowledge of, you've been through the situation enough before, your body knows what to do.
But then on the game on Friday against Houston, he had that one, there was a steal and he had the breakaway dunk and he exploded to the rim, threw it down with one hand, took the foul.
Yeah.
3-point play, and he hung from the rim with one arm. And I was like, that's a good reminder of what he's capable of when he explodes.
Yeah. But the thinking thing, Yogi Berra once said about hitting, I can't think and hit at the same time. And he's right. You can't. It's hard to play basketball if you're actually doing something. Now, if you're outside without the ball, yeah, you can think, I see this, I see that. When you got the ball in your hands, there's people breathing down your neck, you go, and let your body tell you what to do.
Yeah. I play my best golf when I'm not thinking that much.
Yeah.
When you're standing over the ball and you have a lot of thoughts going through your mind, it leads to disaster.
Yes, it does. And how about you got like 4 things that are little triggers for you. I got to remember not to do this, but I have to do this, but I can't do that. Ugh.
Yeah, it's brutal. So I can understand that. Now, Chauncey Billups was asked more specifically about Scoot, what he wants him to work on. Here's what Coach had to say. He was a little more specific.
I think just understanding 2 things. Understanding the actual NBA game and where he was going to get his opportunities at, learning how to navigate pick and rolls when knowing people that are going up under him. I think his confidence is way up on his shot. His balance is so much better on his shot. But secondly, just understanding his opponents, and other teams and coverages and things like that. And those things take a while, to be honest with you. And I think he's come a very long way in understanding those things.
And building on that, what do you think is the biggest things for him to work on this summer?
A few things, obviously to continue to work on his shooting, but finishing is a big thing for him because he's going to be able to get to the paint versus anybody. But being able to finish around that basket, he's going to be the type of player that's going to be putting a lot of pressure on the paint and on the rim. And when you get there, you want to be able to finish at a high level. So I think that's an area that he'll be focusing on this summer.
Is there something technically he needs to get better at with that?
Well, it's really repetition, and it's really knowing what finishes you need. Sometimes it's layups, sometimes it's high layups, sometimes it's spinning off the glass, sometimes it's either hand. It's the little floaters around it's a whole package of them that you all just need to work on because you never know what you're going to need in particular games.
It shows you how basketball can be complex.
Yeah.
It's not just finishing, but knowing what type of finishes you need based on the team and the opponents that are defending you.
Yeah, Chad, he probably needs a little bit bigger toolkit when he goes to the basket. Some of the things Chauncey mentioned, he doesn't really have them in his repertoire. But I think what he needs to do, too, and I don't know, get your agent to do this or an assistant coach, you better find out when are they playing games at UCLA this summer?
Yeah.
What is the Drew League down there? Maybe you should play in the Drew League.
Now, LA
Play in
is
the
still
Summer League.
LA is still the main spot for guys to hook up and play ball, right?
It's good there. It's good in Houston. It's good in Atlanta. There are places to go where there are games. Guys are playing. You need to play against NBA players, top-notch college players, but get in good games so that's the only way you're going to learn these things, I think. You can go through drills all you want. He needs game time, just like Shaden Sharp needs game time. Get out there on the floor with other guys and play.
Similar to what MJ did when he was filming Space Jam, when he was getting ready for that first full season after he came back.
Yeah.
He brought all the best NBA guys out to run scrimmages nonstop.
Yeah.
Go against the best.
Yeah, and some of these places like in LA, there's 2 or 3 spots, not just UCLA. There's spots where some of the better players gather together to play, and they play hard. They're very competitive in these games. I wouldn't want to say it under oath, but I believe there might even be some betting on these games with one team versus another. Not always money either. You might have to do something for the other team, like buy them dinner or something. And they're good in that very seldom are there fights. It's mostly congenial, play hard, but when it's over, shake hands and joke around and have a good time.
In my experience, you don't have to twist an NBA player's arm to gamble on something.
On anything.
Yeah. They're just ultra competitive, and if they can get a little action on something to sweeten the pot, they're in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then they'll talk a lot of junk when they cash in on that, too.
Yeah.
All right, so where are you at on Scoot after year one?
I like Scoot. I liked him when they took him. I still like him, but I like him more now than I did at the start of the season. I got to admit, Chad, he shook me a little bit at the start. I thought he was further along. I didn't see enough of the G League and the G League Ignite to know where he was. He looked much better there in that context than he did in the NBA. So I think, like a lot of us, we were a little shaken by that. But he worked really hard, and he made very nice improvement throughout the season.
There's Coach Mulkey hanging out at the WNBA draft. She didn't invite me. Yeah, I was hoping she would give me the invite.
Oh, Chad, it would have been a chance of a lifetime for you.
I agree. Yeah.
I think you are made for each other.
I just want to sit down with her. Who was the coach? Oh, I think it was Dan Hurley, who's an intense guy, right?
Yeah.
And he talked about having a chance to spend time around Coach Mulkey, and he's like, she's on at all times. Like he was impressed by her energy level. I was like, can you imagine Hurley and Mulkey at a table together?
Oh, gosh.
That's wild right there. Wild times.
Yeah, when Gino retires as the women's basketball coach at UConn, they maybe ought to think about bringing Mulkey in there to have that double-barreled intensity throughout the basketball programs.
Is your wife, she's a psychiatrist now, right?
No, she's not. She's a therapist, not a psychiatrist. No.
But if I laid down on the couch, like, could she help me understand why I'm weirdly attracted to Coach Mulkey?
I think she could help you with that, Chad.
That actually could make good radio content.
Yeah, it definitely would be that.
The Chad Diaries with me talking to Nancy.
Gosh, that'd be a mini series on Netflix.
She would come home and be like, I'm not sure you want to work with this guy anymore.
Yeah, something might be a little wrong there.
Yeah, a lot wrong. All right. So, yeah, and you're not the only one. I think Scoot's start, shook everyone.
Yeah.
My guess is the team was probably a little bit disturbed.
Yeah.
It just goes to show you how you just don't know until you get into the league.
Well, they wanted to start him right off the bat, and
he wasn't ready.
Yeah, they had to bring him off the bench for a while, and I don't think that fit into their plans.
I don't think it fit into their plans. All right, we'll keep things rolling. When we come back, our very special guest, who was at the Masters, being dominant at age 13 or 14, which is amazing to me.
Yeah.
And then how do you celebrate? Well, you hit the snack stand at the Masters like any good person would do.
Absolutely.
I can't wait to ask him what item he loved the most.
I think he might give you a recommendation.
All right. So it's the Rip City Drive. You want to reach out, 503-248-0620. Connor Holden is coming up next. He won and is the champion of the drive, pitch, and putt competition at Augusta National. He'll share the story coming up next. All right, Connor Holden is going to join us here in just a moment. Let's go out to the phones. Paul in West Lynn wants to jump on board. Hey, Paul, appreciate the phone call. You're up on the Rip City Drive. What's on your mind?
Well, first of all, you mentioned Space Jam. Just a fun fact. Were you aware that Michael Jordan, in order to prepare for his role in Space Jam, won 6 NBA championships and 3 MVPs?
I don't understand the question.
It was a funny comment. In order to prepare for his role in Space Jam, he won. Anyhow, my comment on Scoot is as follows. I don't want to be negative or disrespectful to a 19-year-old, but let's not forget he was the top 3 pick. He's not a second-round pick. I don't recall any top 3 picks saying they need to work on everything on their game. Luka's not saying that. Trae Young's not saying that. Chris Paul's not saying that. All the great point guards are not saying that are drafted high in the first round, in the top 10, are not saying, I got to work on everything this summer. That's the only part that's concerning for me. I know he's 19. I just don't like the verbiage. I appreciate his honesty, but he was a top 3 pick. Let's not forget.
All right,
Well-
Paul, appreciate the phone call. What's your reaction to that?
Well, for one thing, Luka had been playing professional basketball in the second toughest league in the world for 3 years before he came to the NBA and was MVP 1 year. Trae Young had at least one season in college where he played very well. The experience level when those guys came in the league was much different. If you compare him to guys in similar situations, his numbers end up being pretty good.
Yeah, and I'm not making any excuses for Scoot. I
No.
mean, we all know his first season was underwhelming based on where he was selected.
Yeah.
But I was told by a scout at an NBA game this year over at Moda Center that the G League is not a good preparation for NBA basketball because it's such a junk league.
Yeah.
And then you get on the floor and all of a sudden you're in structure. And then all of a sudden the 4s and the 5s move at a much different speed in the NBA than they do in the G League
Of
level.
course.
And he's 19. He was 19. He's 20 now, but he was 19 when he was in the league. It's not an easy position at that
No.
age.
No. And to talk about where he was selected isn't really fair to him. I mean, it's just a different situation than other people who've been selected there. There have been guys selected third that didn't even make it in the league.
Yeah. All right, so we'll get back to the Blazers. Appreciate the phone call, Paul. Our next guest was the champion of the drive, pitch, and putt. The boy's 14 and 50 years old at Augusta National. He's also a middle schooler out in Canby, Oregon. His home course is Willamette Valley Country Club. And we're very happy to welcome Connor Holden to the Rip City Drive. Connor, good afternoon and welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Connor, I had the pleasure of speaking to you last night. It was a lot of fun. But maybe for some of the people that aren't familiar with the drive and the pitch and the putt competition, tell us a little bit about the structure of that and what you have to do.
I mean, you just really got to be focused for those 6 shots that you have to hit. And it's really nerve-wracking standing over all those shots because you have to go 6 for 6, really. And in the Nationals, it's only 6 shots, but in the qualifiers, it's 9 shots. So especially those, it's even more pressure because you have 9 good shots to hit. But
Connor, you had to go through regional, sub-regional, that kind of competition to get back to the Masters for the finals. Tell us about that. What kind of road is that to get to the finals?
it takes a lot of hard work, and you just have to play good all 3 times. Like, there's the local, sub-regional, and regional, and you have to win all 3 rounds to get there. So it's a lot of pressure for sure.
We're talking with Connor Holden here on the Rip City Drive. Connor, Dwight was telling me you were age 5 when you started playing golf.
I was a little younger than that, but I started tournaments when I was 5, and yeah, I went out and shot 1 over at my first tournament and won by 11.
Where did you find clubs for a 5-year-old?
Well, my dad cut down some of his old ones, and you can find short putters, but he cut down one of his old hybrids and gave it to me, and it was my first club.
And he told me that you got interested because he watched golf on TV, and all of a sudden he looked over there, and you were sitting down next to him watching it just as intently as you. Is that your remembrance of how you got interested in golf?
I mean, yeah, pretty much. He saw me just watching the PGA Tour on weekends and just decided he wanted me to be a golfer, I guess.
We're talking with Connor Holden here on the Rip City Drive, the champion of the drive pitch and putt competition. at Augusta National. So many of us who love golf, Connor, want to know what that course is like. You had a chance to go there, so give us your takeaway from just the grounds, the course, and the entire setup there. How nice is it?
It was like crazy. It's so like the grass is perfect. It looks fake just about because how good it is, and the course, like the layout, is so good.
Now, I asked you about the concession stand. Give me your favorite item.
Oh gosh, probably the egg salad sandwich. It was really good. I like the pimento sandwich too, but I would say the egg salad sandwich was a little better.
How much did you have to spend to get that?
$1.50.
Oh,
You're getting over on life, Connor. All right. Now, when it came to, let's start with the putting competition. Dwight was telling me you did that on the 18th green at Augusta.
Yeah, it was a 30-footer and a 15-footer on the 18th green, which was definitely amazing. It was really, really fast.
did you get a lot of practice on a fast green, or was it a little bit tough to adjust to?
I mean, we putted for 10, 12 minutes on just a practice green, which was equally as fast in my opinion. It was definitely really fast, so I could get used to it for a little bit.
Now, did it match up when you see it in person, did it match up with what you thought it would look like based on the images that you had seen on TV over the years?
Yeah, it was better in my opinion, and it's a lot hillier in real life than it looks on TV. Like, it was crazy when I first saw it, but it definitely looks as nice as it does on TV.
Now, I asked you this last night, and we talked about this, but you didn't have a lot of access to the golfers who were playing in this, but I understand that you got to spend some time with a former PGA pro standout from Portland, Peter Jacobsen. Tell us about that.
So we talked to him the night before at the dinner, just tried to get to know him a little better, and then the next day after I won, we ran into him on our way out and just chatted for a little bit about Augusta and about how he was announcing for me and stuff.
That's amazing. What questions, because you're a really good golfer and obviously you're looking to grow and get better at the game, did you ask him any specific questions on what you needed to do as you continue to move forward?
Not really. I kind of just talked to him about, like, Augusta and stuff, and Oregon.
What's his takeaway on Augusta?
He definitely loves it. He thinks it's really cool, and he loves going there every year.
You know, it is a special place. I'm sure of that. What was your experience then on did you get to see any of the tournament? Did you watch them practice? Did you get an up-close look at some of these guys, at least like on the range or something? Give me your take on that.
We got to watch the practice round on Monday, which was really great, getting to walk the course and just see how they practice and prepare for tournaments. And I watched them at the range for about 45 minutes too, which, yeah, I watched JT Spieth and Cantley finish like 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18 on Monday, and it was just great to see them play.
Hey, Connor, what jumped out at you when you watched their practice habits in terms of how they got ready? What jumped out at you through your eyes?
How after they like get up to the greens in their practice rounds, they like rarely even put out their own hole, and they just like put tees down where they know the pin locations will be during tournament days and put out those, and the caddies roll like balls to them too. Even when the pros aren't out there, the caddies will walk the course just to like understand the course more.
Ah, that's interesting. They put tees down to where they know the holes are going to be like on day 3, day 4, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty good.
So maybe that taught you to, in the future, to plan your course management, right? Based on the greens, the setup where the holes are going to be so you can have a better idea when you go into each shot.
Yeah. In the future, for tournaments with practice rounds, I feel like I learned more about that and like how they practice and stuff.
That's great. We're talking with Connor Holden here on the Rip City Drive. Where did you do the driving competition at? Was it at the practice range? Was it on a particular hole? Where'd you get a chance to do that?
It was at the practice range at the pros warm up at for the tournament. and it was nice.
How far did you hit it in your competition?
Hit my first one 276 and my first one 260.
And you weren't even first in the driving, right? What were you, third, second?
Yeah, I was third.
Some guys that age. Of course, you were younger, right? Were you the youngest guy in that age group?
I believe so. I turned 14 only 2 months ago.
Wow. Happy late birthday, my friend. You know, one thing that
Thanks.
Dwight and I like to do is when I go to a baseball game or a different city, I always like to grab a souvenir. Did you come back with anything in particular to commemorate your time at Augusta?
Oh yeah, we definitely bought a lot of stuff at the pro shop. It was humongous. It was like the size of a Rite Aid. Like it was big.
Yeah, I've heard that.
What's your favorite item that you brought back?
Oh gosh. Probably one of the pullovers that I got.
Nice.
Yeah, I was going to say, everybody buys the polo. Did you get the green one?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the one I got. That's the one I was eyeing right when I walked in.
Did you buy a pin flag?
Yes, we did, and it's pretty cool. I saw just about everyone with one of them.
Yeah, you got to get a pin flag. Did you get anybody's autograph on it?
No, I didn't. We got a drive trip and putt flag the day before for the event, and I got Bryson DeChambeau to sign that one. And it would have been great if he won, but he was in it after day one, but couldn't pull it off.
He needed to hit a few more putts, I can tell you that. Now, your putting competition, putting always seems to be like a pressurized situation, and I believe I think it's the last of the three things you do, right? So was the whole competition resting on your putting?
Yeah, it was. I was in first going into the putting, so I got to putt last. And going into the putt, there's a huge leaderboard that, like, it showed how many feet I needed to get both my putts inside of, it was nerve-wracking. I think I had to get both of them within, like, 4 feet and 8 inches or something like that, and I did it.
Which one did you have to do first? I assume you did the long one first, right?
Yeah, we did the 30-footer first, and then the 15-footer second, and I put the 30-footer to 2.5 feet, and the short putt to like 1.5 feet.
No problem, right?
Yeah, I had a lot of pressure over that second one. I just was hoping to not hit it too far because those putts are really quick. Like it doesn't take a lot to hit it too far.
Did you get enough time to read the green? I mean, that's the biggest problem with putting there. It looked like the pros couldn't even get a good read sometimes.
Yeah, I definitely took my time standing over that second one, and I got to watch everyone else hit the putts too, so I got a read off of them. But yeah, I definitely took my time.
So, Connor, what is one or two things that you're really trying to work on in your game right now to get better?
Hitting, like, getting good at my lag putts just so I have less three putting around, and my shot shapes.
What's your handicap again?
I'm a plus 0.3.
Well, you better work on getting that plus 0.3 down.
Yeah, that's very disappointing, Connor.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great.
Well, Connor,
I definitely owe a lot of it to my coach, getting my handicap down and just getting me to hit it a lot straighter, and he definitely helps out a lot.
Who's your coach?
Bruce Furman at Langdon Farms.
Bruce Furman. Props to Bruce Furman for taking good care of Connor. That's
No
awesome.
kidding.
Well, Connor, I can tell you what, Dwight and I, first off, thank you for coming on the show. And
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
I'm in love with the game, too. And so to hear someone that puts in the time and the work, I have a feeling we're going to be reading a lot more about your name in the future, my friend.
I hope so.
Hey, just last thing, Connor. How much time are you spending on the game every week?
I practice 7 days a week and for around 3 hours a day.
Wow.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, Connor, tell your dad thank you, and we wish you the absolute best. And by the way, you're welcome on the show anytime.
That's right.
All right, thank you.
You got it. Well, I tell you what, Godfather, if Connor is as calm on the golf course as he is doing a radio interview,
That's pretty good for a kid 14 years old.
I'm trying to think back what I was doing when I was 14. Nothing good.
Yeah, you're up to no good, probably.
100%. And Connor comes on. He's like, yeah, I won the competition at Augusta.
Yeah, it is 276.
He said the pro shop's as big as a Rite Aid.
Yeah. Everybody talks about the pro shop. Bring your money. Yeah.
You and I would do very well in a place like that.
Man.
How mad would Nancy get mad at you after you walked out of that place?
Oh, yeah. I'd have to hide the credit cards for 3 months. Man.
I want one of those flags.
Oh, pin flag from there is gold. And you can buy them online. But I'm not going to do that unless I go there. That's the only way it works.
Okay, I'm going to ask you again. When you get your ass there? It's ridiculous you and Nancy haven't been there yet.
You know,
if you go to the Amazon, you go to freaking Augusta.
When this gets to the point where my wife is hearing, hey, she hears this yesterday out on the course. Hey, I hear you guys are going to the Masters soon.
I'm going to speak it into an existence for you.
Well, we'll see.
Well, big props to Connor. That was fun.
I think we're going to go to the Quicken Loans in Detroit this year. We're talking about that.
Oh, the tournament.
Yeah, the Quicken Loans tournament. It's a good, big tournament. Everybody's there, and we have an in to get some tickets. So,
what's up, Angel? I'm a big fan of Detroit. I went there and liked the city. I went there thinking one thing. You know, I'm done listening to people when they give me input on what certain places are.
Nice.
Yeah, I spent time around the state of Michigan. I spent time in downtown Detroit. If you listen to people, here's the problem. If you listen to morons who give you bad advice, you'll miss out on something that's cool. Detroit was awesome.
If you listen to morons, you become a moron.
Yes.
Moron.
I just hate that. Oh, I don't know why I want to go there. Well, I went and it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, and the weather wasn't exactly spectacular when I was there in December, but it was still nice. It'd be nice to go there in the summertime when you're watching a golf tournament.
That's
too.
what we're thinking, yeah.
But there is part of me that doesn't like Connor because his handicap at age 14 is point plus 3.
Yeah.
Plus 0.3.
Plus 0.3.
Thanks a lot, Connor. But
that's
again,
closer to 0 than it is to 1.
But he spends 21 hours a week working on his game.
Yeah.
How many other guys out there who get mad every time they miss a shot at the local muni are putting 21 hours a week into practice?
Great point.
0.
Yes. Yeah. That's more time than you spend practicing, and you practice quite a bit.
I'm irritated at the comment because I'm like, I practice a lot, and he tells me how long he practices. I'm like, son of a bleep. 21 hours.
He's a good guest. That's great to get a young man who can effectively speak like that on his experiences.
What's his dad's name?
Brad.
Hey, Brad, good job raising a good son there. Nice work,
Yeah.
Brad.
Yeah. Had the pleasure of meeting him just last night.
I wonder what his best score is at Willamette. Do you know that?
No, I don't. Should have asked him, I guess. I better not let him enter any tournaments there because he'd kill people.
Is
with
this
his
Christopher
game.
Cross? Give me a little volume on this.
Yeah, of course it is.
I've never heard this song before. That's why I'm asking.
It's called No Time for Talk.
I've never heard that song before. I recognize the voice because he's got a unique voice.
And his songs tend to sound somewhat alike.
Which I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
All right, when we come back, we got to celebrate number 42 Day, Jackie Robinson Day. We'll get thoughts from the Godfather. His influence, much greater than just a game of baseball. You got the Rip City Drive. I like it. Michael Shacker. I like it when he gets involved and tries to tell me, hey, you got a radio show to do, moron. And Scotty Bethune, when I was saying, don't listen to morons, he's like, I'm turning off my radio now.
Yeah.
I mean,
Thanks,
I like
Scotty.
Cinderella too, but I thought
No,
you
Cinderella's
wanted me
good.
to fade it and get the show going.
No, I'll be honest. I'll peel the curtain back just a little bit. I like to have various cups of coffee throughout the course of the show, and the Nespresso machine makes noise when I produce a shot. And so I like to do it when the music is on, but it hadn't been turned on in a bit, so it takes a couple of moments for it to warm up, and then both lights are on. So I was waiting for that to happen so I could make my cup of coffee so that the wasn't going out over the radio. That's exactly what I was doing. But I respect you for being like, what are you doing, moron? And we're not just going to play Cinderella for 5 minutes. Do your show. I appreciate that. All right. Jackie Robinson Day, huge day. I love Jackie. I've got Jackie gear. I support Jackie Robinson, but you have a better perspective than I do because you saw him play. And I think what is important to understand is that he didn't just break the color barrier in sports. His impact was much bigger than just baseball. How do you see it?
Well, let's start by what you were talking about. First of all, he was a great player. He's in the Hall of Fame for a reason, not just breaking the color barrier.
And you think he could play and be a star today?
Yeah, absolutely. He had all the tools. He's a great athlete, All-American football player. People don't realize he was an All-American football player at UCLA. His brother, Mac Robinson. Remember Jesse Owens won those medals in the Olympics?
Yeah.
Yeah, in Germany, in front of Hitler. Who finished second in that race? Mac Robinson, his brother, at Oregon.
I didn't know that.
His brother ran track at Oregon. That was a big deal, too. Jackie was also it was in those days called Pacific Coast Conference in basketball, all conference in basketball. Great athlete. But baseball was the one he chose to make his living with. The other two didn't pay well in those days, so he went with baseball. Branch, rookie of the Dodgers, thought, first of all, it's not right that they're not getting to play. Second of all, Branch, rookie, we can win. If I start bringing some black players in, they're every bit as good or maybe better than the white guys I got. I got to get this guy in. So he signed him, sent him to Montreal for a little bit of minor league season, and boom, brought him up almost right away to the big leagues. And he told him right away when he signed him, this is going to be hard for you. Everybody wants you to fail. You're going to hear things. I know you're a feisty guy. You're a tough guy. I wanted a tough guy. You're going to have to be tough enough not to retaliate. You're going to have to listen in silence. You're going to have to take it and show them with the way you play what you're all about. You're going to have to win your teammates over. You're going to have to win the other teams over. And it was brutal what he had to put up with. Threatened to be shot, everything else. But he got through it. He won his teammates over. His famous teammate, the captain of the Dodgers, Pee Wee Reese, was the shortstop. Famous picture. Jackie was hearing a lot of derision from the other dugout, and Pee Wee walked right over to him at second base and put his arm around him. Pee Wee Reese from Louisville, Kentucky, who was supposed to be part of the people that weren't going to accept him. So when all of this happened and it went down, soon other black players followed. We know that the color line was broken. I believe it was the start of the civil rights movement in the United States.
That's amazing.
It was incredible, Chad. It all kind of caught fire from there once people saw that. Baseball at that time was the number one sport without question, and it kind of pushed things along. Branch Rickey was a great guy for bringing him in. Jackie Robinson, even a greater guy, for putting up with what he did to bring this about and to make this happen.
Well, credit to Branch for preparing Jackie for what he was going to face, and then credit to Jackie for having the strength for what it took to get through the threats, the death threats, the racism, the whole shebang to be able to play baseball.
Took great dignity, really, personal dignity, to stay above all of that. And he really was. He was above all of that. But when you saw him play, you could tell the fire that was inside him, the way he ran the bases with complete abandon, not recklessness, but complete abandon. And
Do
was
you think there was a part of him that wanted to show all the haters, the racists out there that, hey, I can play baseball as well as anyone?
Absolutely. He was carrying the banner for the Negro Leagues at the time. All of those great players. I mean, I just heard a story. Buck O'Neill, one of the great storytellers from that era. I actually had the pleasure of sitting next to Buck at a banquet I emceed once. The best banquet speaker I ever heard, the late Buck O'Neill, and one of the great men I've ever spoken to. Unbelievable. He tells the story. Their league, the guys in their league were accustomed to racism. They played all over the country, a lot in the South where they were faced with all kinds of segregation, you know. And he told a story about their team bus pulling into a gas station that they had used for 20 years in the South, and they never went to the restroom. Sign out of it, white men only. Well, when Jackie came, that stopped. Guy wouldn't let him in. All right, guys, we're getting gas somewhere else. And it became that way. If it was a whites-only hotel, well, we're going to find one that will let us in. And they found them. That they got in. They no longer had to go to the bad part of town and stay in a blacks-only hotel.
So they stuck by their teammate.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
And he was the total leader in that. And then he changes over to the other league, and people thought, wow, all these other guys from that league can play. So pretty soon, Roy Campanella, the great catcher, Hall of Famer, he joined the Dodgers. Don Newcomb, the pitcher. All of a sudden, there were more coming into the game, and it was great for baseball and great for this country.
And just part of the reason why everyone today is wearing number 42. How awesome is that?
Everybody in baseball today, regardless of team, is wearing number 42. If you're a radio or TV broadcaster, it's terrible. There's a guy coming in from the bullpen. I can't tell who he is. We can't see him yet, but he's number 42.
All right, when we come back, your favorite subject, Chauncey Billups returning next year for coach of the Trailblazers. We'll focus in on Chauncey. If you got thoughts, 503-248-0620. And we'll hear from him at today's exit interview over at the practice facility. You got the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad. Well, shocking news has come in from the WNBA draft. Caitlin Clark selected #1 overall to the Indiana Fever. What's up, my friends? Trailblazers have finished their 2023-24 season. Exit interviews today. We're going to hear from Chauncey Billups coming up next on the show. The next big date, NBA lottery, is coming up on Sunday, May 12th. The Trailblazers and Hornets will need a coin toss to determine the order, who will be 3 and who will be 4, after the Spurs and Hornets got wins on the final day of the regular season. Grayson Allen has signed a new 4-year deal with the Suns worth $70 million. John Sterling, longtime radio voice of the Yankees, has retired. It's Jackie Robinson Day around the majors. Mariners will host the Reds tonight. First pitch, 6:42 from T-Mobile Park. George Kirby will get the call for the M's. And we're going to talk PGA Dave at 5:20 and focus in on the Masters and Scotty Scheffler getting the green jacket. All right, the biggest story to come out of Trailblazer Media Days, at least from a lot of fans' perspective, was Joe Cronin reaffirming that Chauncey Billups is going to be back next year as head coach. And I had no issues with that whatsoever. I expected that, and I think you did as well. But I want to focus in on Chauncey, and then we'll talk about Chauncey returning as a coach and whether or not that's the right decision for the Trailblazers. If you got thoughts, 503-248-0620, 503-248-0620. I want to play this exchange, a question from Aaron Fentress, discussing, the type of season, development versus winning and so forth. Take a listen.
Coming into this season, you guys made it clear that it was development first, winning second. You obviously were going to try and win, but development was the priority. And I asked you specifically about Scoot versus Brogdon, that there was no competition, that Brogdon was way better, but you were going to start Scoot and maybe finish games with Brogdon. So, but it sounds like now you want to go into next season where winning's first, development second, and that you don't really want to go through another 50-loss season.
I would love that. I would love that for sure.
Roster moves, not necessarily just bringing back the entire crew, right?
Well, first and foremost, it will require us just being healthy. I think we got some good players, man. Like, I really believe if we was healthy this year, we wouldn't feel this. I wouldn't feel like this. We went 21 games this year. And literally, I don't even know if we had our roster for more than 5 or 6 games, I don't know what that would have been if we had a full roster. Do we win 35? Do we win? I don't know. But even with the depleted rosters and lineups that we play, we won 21, and we probably gave away probably 6 or 7 or 8. We up 26, 20-something, this, that, I don't know what would have happened, but I just know that, like, we already have good players on our roster. But there's a lot of things, like you say, like we should be looking at everything, to try to get better. But you also can't speed up the development without actually experience, which our guys, they got that experience this year. But yeah, that's 3 years in a row for me of losing 50, all these games, and I think we all know this. Like, that wasn't my plan when I came here, We had like a veteran-laden team, at the time, and we was hopefully trying to take a step up. But things change, things change, and I've been fine with that, But we also got to be honest, like, we could have been healthy all year, and the Western Conference is crazy. The Lakers, who I think got a really good roster, they've been healthy all year. They in the play-in. I think New Orleans got a hell of a roster. They in the play-in. The West is crazy, So, but I hope that we're in a position, where we can compete with some of these teams.
There's Coach Billups. I feel like there is some friction or conflict. Not saying that Joe Cronin and Chauncey Billups don't get along or don't see eye to eye, but I think there's some friction between what the coaching staff would like to do, what Chauncey Billups wants, compared to what Joe Cronin and his staff wants in terms of long-term health of the franchise. I mean, you can feel it in the voice there. It's tough.
Well, Chad, that happens, frequently in this situation. Chauncey Billups doesn't need to get 50 to 60 more losses on his career coaching record next season. He don't want that. I don't think he even deserves that. But it's very likely that's what's going to happen, and it's not going to be his fault. It wasn't his fault this year. They lost a lot of games. People who want to blame Chauncey Billups for that? Come on now.
I think the exact number of the entire roster, 3 games.
Yeah. Well, I don't care who you want to talk about as a coach. He wouldn't have won many more games than what they won this year. They had no talent, folks. They didn't. They didn't have enough talent to win. You heard what Chauncey said, and he's right. The Lakers are in the play-in. New Orleans is in the play-in. Way more talent than Portland had.
Significant.
Way more.
Yeah, they're a talent-depleted roster.
Yeah.
And you've got to understand that. They need talent. They need players. Joe Cronin talked about it. We aren't talented enough to not seriously consider any move that could bring in more talent.
Yeah. But, Chauncey seems to be thinking in terms of getting a lot of this roster back next year. I guess he's thinking about Ayton, Brogdon, Grant, veteran players. If they seriously want to get into the running for one of those top 2 or 3 picks next season, those guys aren't going to be back because they got to lose more than what they've been losing. That's the simple fact. They're probably going to have to really go to the bottom of the barrel to have a real legit chance at getting a good pick in a very talent-laden draft. That's the reality of the situation.
Personally, I believe that's the best course of action.
Well, I would guess the front office believes that too. Now, I don't know if Chauncey will be on board with that. Maybe he wouldn't. But I can tell you this, if you're talking about changing coaches, you can't get a real proven winner of a coach to commit to coming into this situation.
Yeah.
They're not going to do it. They wouldn't take this job. A good coach isn't desperate enough to want to take this coaching job knowing they're going to have to tank next year. It's going to happen, folks. Batten down the hatches if you have to, but that's the only choice this team has next year.
All right. What is the most likely scenario as we move into the future with Chauncey Billups? He's going to be back next year for year 4.
Yeah.
He's got a option on the final year of his contract. The team is not picked up yet.
Yeah.
And Cronin's not going to discuss that. He made it clear he's not going to discuss contract situations.
Right.
Do you think it's more likely that he coaches year 4, they go back into the lottery, and at that time they just don't pick up the option, and then Cronin can hire a different coach? Do you think it's possible that Chauncey does wonders with what he has to work with next year and is able to earn the option or an extension? What makes sense based on where they're at right now?
It's going to be hard for him to do better because the better they do, the more players they're likely to let go. Yeah, frankly, that's just how it works. We've seen it. And I just, if he does that, he'd have a chance to come back for that final year of his contract, but I don't expect that yet.
Yeah. And the reason why I ask is because normally, GMs, when they take over, they eventually want to hire
their own guy.
And even though Joe and Chauncey have a good relationship, Chauncey was hired by a different general manager.
Yeah.
Across sports, normally a GM wants to eventually get his own guy in there, whoever that might be, right?
Or maybe the owner wants to get her own person in.
And that's quite possible, too. So here's what I think about Chauncey this year. One, and you pointed this out, I think he's done a good job of being dealt bad cards, but he doesn't complain about it. Like, he doesn't make excuses about the injuries or anything else that's going on. He just goes out there and does his job with whatever he's got to work with. I like that about him. And I believe, based on what I've heard, is players respect him. one, for what he did as a player, but they respect him as a coach. I think he communicates well. I think the best thing they've done this year is the work with the young guys on the roster, whether it be Delano Banton or Scoot, or the growth we saw from year 1 to year 2 with Jabari, Tamani Kamara, and the way he was able to come on. I think the job with the young guys is really good. For everything else, it's really hard to know because we don't have the data of Chauncey working with a legitimate roster. The one thing I do believe is that the growth between when he started up until now, you can see a different coach in terms of schematics, what he's trying to accomplish, better decision making.
Yeah.
He's not where he needs to be, but he's getting better.
Yeah. Well,
what do you see from him?
Yeah, I see the same things, Chad, and I just see a man who is in a really tough spot, and he's going to gain a lot of points around the league for not complaining about it and for just doing what he's supposed to do. I would imagine his agent, if anybody talked to his agent about, well, we're thinking about Chauncey Billups, but we're concerned about his record. And that agent's going to say, how many games did you expect the man to win when the team wants to lose?
Yeah.
And that's basically what the prescription has been for this coach for the last, how many years?
Yeah.
3.
Yeah. It's one of those weird things where I agree with what the franchise is trying to do, but unfortunately, Chauncey gets caught up in the middle. His job is to coach and coach at what he's got to work with.
Yeah.
But he's not going to have a lot to work with based on the overall motivations of what the franchise is trying to do. Because I'll tell you what, I think it would be crazy for the Blazers to go out and add players that could help them win 35 or 40 games next year to be more respectable and then miss out on the treasure trove in that draft.
Right.
To me, that's crazy. You can't do that.
And let's face it, all those veteran players that were added, you know, I'm talking about Ayton and Grant last year and Brogdon, good players, not players who are going to lead you to the promised land. You know, no offense to them, but they're not the superstar, all-star kind of player who is going to mean the difference between winning a championship and not.
Yeah, so the bottom line here is I think you and I are on the same page. One, what do you expect Chauncey to do with what he's had to work with in 3 years? Two, if you were to get rid of Chauncey now, you're not going to be able to hire a good coach who's going to come in and take over this job right now. But if you wait another year, and let's say you go in the draft and get Cooper Flagg, then all of a sudden you've got a young roster that's loaded up and ready to start making that turn. Then it's going to be a lot easier to find a coach who wants to come in and take over.
Yeah. Because if you really want a proven coach and not to have to go get some G League guy or somebody who's been an assistant in the league that's never had head coaching experience, that person is probably available to you. But I don't think any of the real, you know, you're not going to get Nick Nurse to come here. You know what I'm saying? And I don't mean him specifically, but I mean guys of his ilk. You know, Ime Udoka would probably like to come home to coach. He wouldn't come home to this. He went to Houston because he saw what was in Houston, and that's pretty good makings they have right now in Houston.
Well, I don't have any girlfriends, so I don't have to worry about Ime. So, yeah, I'll take Ime. Bring him in. Bring him in. By the way, speaking of coaches, have a guy came up to me after the game on Friday when I was doing fifth quarter. He said, "Do you have one of these?" And he handed me a box. I'm like, "What is this?" I opened it up. I now have, and it's sitting proudly on my desk at home, a Maurice Cheeks bobblehead.
Oh.
And I put it up in honor of you.
No kidding.
Yes. He said,
as a player or as a coach?
As the coach of the Trailblazers, they had a Mo Cheeks bobblehead night, and I've got it sitting up in my room now. Worst coach in franchise history.
He is, in fact, a bobblehead.
Yeah.
In real life.
A real-life dum-dum who got an extra year of coaching when he didn't deserve it because he helped finish out the national anthem.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, you couldn't fire him after that.
I love that you wrote that piece when you were covering the Blazers, just destroying Mo for being not very good at his job for a variety of different reasons. That got recirculated when he was coaching Detroit, and some Pistons fans read that piece and started spinning it out on social media, and they were freaking out like, "Did you see this piece on Cheeks? He's an idiot."
Why did you hire this guy? For people who think I don't have the courage to speak up against Chauncey Billups, I've had a hand probably in a couple guys getting fired just by telling the truth.
Yeah. Well, you've been around some dumb coaches. Chauncey Billups does not fit that. He's a good coach.
He's light years better than good old you-know-who.
Yeah. There's a few.
Yeah.
All right. We'll keep things rolling. We're going to come back and focus in on the Masters. PGA David Coleman, going to join us. He'll talk about Scheffler's greatness, a very unassuming superstar. What about Tiger's grinding effort in finishing out the round? And what about David Coleman being a freaking Nostradamus, naming Oberg on our show before the tournament, saying, keep an eye on him, he's my dark horse, and the guy darn near wins the tournament.
He's a soothsayer.
I texted him on Saturday, like, dude, you're a genius. I was blown away. I'd never heard of the guy before he mentioned him, and all of a sudden he almost wins the Masters.
I know. Finished second.
I wonder if he doesn't put that ball in the water. He's got a chance to win the friggin' tournament.
He would have.
All right, David Coleman's coming up next. I did take time this weekend to go through the 20 minutes of nonstop Norm Macdonald OJ jokes that were put together by someone during his days on Saturday Night Live. It did not disappoint.
It makes you miss Norm Macdonald a lot. I'll tell you that.
The highest level execs at NBC said, "Don't do those OJ jokes anymore." His response was, "I'm going to keep going out and doing the OJ jokes."
Yeah. And
Wild.
their response was, "You're fired."
You're fired. We're going to have to let you go now. All right, joining us right now, and if you're on hold, stay there. We'll get to your phone calls. David Coleman, who is our PGA insider and one heck of a guy. And if you go back to last week, keep in mind, he said, "Hey, my dark horse for the tournament, Ludwig Oberg." And I was like, "Who?" And the guy almost wins the tournament. I texted him over the weekend, said he was a genius, and he's back on the show. David, man, good call on Oberg. You're unbelievable.
Hey, I appreciate it, Chad. Yeah, I just looked at his game, and it was suited really well for Augusta. I think just his mindset and his mentality, the way he played in college at Texas Tech, and then, you look at the way his game, has come out, here at the professional level early on in his career. He can play any course right now. And this guy, even after he hit that in the water yesterday on 11, you saw him bounce back right away. So it's kid's got a lot of talent, and I think he's a big time future in front of him.
I wanted to ask you that, Dave. As good as we're seeing Scheffler, in 3 years, are we going to be talking more about Oberg than we are Scheffler?
I think there's a possibility of that, Dwight. I think there's no doubt. I mean, you look at the way Ludwig hits the ball. I think he hits it maybe even longer than Scheffler. I think he's younger, so he's got, a couple years on him there. And I think the other thing, too, is Scheffler, to me, the only weakness you could say in Scheffler's resume is that he hasn't really won a tournament after the Masters, like in the summertime. He had a chance, I think, to win the Tour Championship a few years ago at Eastlake, and Rory beat him on that Sunday, a few years ago when they changed the whole format of the FedEx Cup playoffs. So, yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, I think Ludwig is a guy that's going to be around for a long time, and I think everybody sees it and everybody knows it, and there's no doubt that, it just wasn't his time. But, hey, first time ever playing that course, you're going to make a mistake like that. He had to be aggressive technically. Even if he makes par there, there's no guarantee he would have won the tournament. But there's no question that Ludwig is a guy that I think is going to be around for many, many years and win a lot of big tournaments.
We're talking to PGA David Coleman here on the Rip City Drive. Your overall thoughts on Scheffler's performance, which led to another green jacket?
Wow. I mean, unbelievable how good this guy is. I mean, he's like a machine. I mean, his short game is really underrated. Tee to green, he doesn't miss too many shots. And I think what's so impressive about him, guys, is every time he made a bogey, he came back with a birdie. I mean, it seemed like nothing really bothered him. And, I think he's in such control on that golf course, a course that so many guys, they get tied up in knots mentally playing. And, obviously we saw how great Jack played that course years ago. Tiger had a tremendous record at Augusta. But to me, Scheffler's in that same category. I think, he's just playing so good and so within himself. He knows his golf swing so well. And I think that, to me, is the difference between him and the rest of the players on the tour, is that he's got so much inner belief and confidence that no matter where he goes and plays, as long as he putts decent, he doesn't even have to putt great, but if he putts decent, there's no doubt that he's always going to be a factor in any tournament he tees it up in.
Hey, Dwight, what was the name of that stat you were telling about? Is it bounce back?
Bounce back.
Yeah, they have a bounce back rate, and according to Dwight, Scheffler's bounce back in terms of response to a bad hole is one of the best. And I didn't even know they had that stat, but it proves your point. I mean, the guy's ability to respond to a bad moment, he shakes it and moves on.
Yeah, oh, yeah, there's no doubt about it, Chad. I mean, and that goes back to, the mental toughness he's got, but also, the physical things that a lot of people have talked about. I mean, I heard a guy last week on the Masters radio talking about when Scheffler was a little kid, he would just hit wedge shots over and over and over at the course he grew up at in Dallas, and he just kept hitting shots right at the pin all day, from the time he was 7 years old. So, this guy has been working at it his entire life. And to me, that just shows the dedication. And then you add in the talent. And then just, I think the team he has around him. I mean, you look at, the caddy, Ted Scott, the guy who was with Bubba Watson. He's one of the best caddies probably in the history of the game, up there with Stevie Williams and Fluff and Bones and all those great caddies. That he's definitely in that category. And then you look at his family, his agent, they all seem so unassuming. Like none of them like want the spotlight. You know, I mean, like back in the day when Tiger was on top, how much did we hear about his agent or Earl Woods and all these other people running around with him? We don't hear any of that with Scheffler. There's no noise. It's so refreshing and so cool to see.
We're talking to PJ David Coleman here on the Rip City Drive.
Yeah, you know, Dave, I just wonder about that composure and everything. He looks so bulletproof right now. Anything happens, he doesn't change expression. Is he the most stoic or the most under control pro that we've seen for a while? I mean, I can't think of anybody else that was so unflappable.
I can't either, Dwight. I mean, I think most of these guys, you know, especially the guys recently, obviously Tiger, John Rahm comes to mind, Rory somewhat, but a lot of these bigger names, you know, they definitely showed emotion. I think Faldo back in the day was kind of emotionless, and obviously it's funny when he went to CBS and did all the great announcing that he did, he was the complete opposite. So it just shows that, you know, these guys, you know, there is times where they get heated, especially in the heat of battle, you know, when they're playing majors at places like Augusta and these difficult golf courses on the biggest stage of them all. They're going to show some emotion, but he really doesn't. It's even last night when he gave the victory speech, like when they put the green jacket on him in Butler Cabin and out on the putting green afterwards, where he gave more of an extended speech, and they, you know, really it talked about his family and, you know, his agent and everybody around him. It's like this guy's just so unassuming, and he doesn't do the social media stuff that these other guys do. So it's just so refreshing and cool to see.
Now, on the other end of that is Bryson DeChambeau, who is good for the game of golf because he's a lightning rod for controversy. What was your take on his performance and really what his future, what he can do for the game?
Yeah, I think, Chad, you know, you look at his game. I mean, there's no doubt Bryson from tee to green is unbelievable, but I think he's so mechanical, too, that I think he's, you know, that's where he can get controversial with people really follow the game, because these irons that he had in the bag last week at Augusta were clubs that were just approved by the USGA, I think, on Tuesday. So, I mean, obviously he had been testing them for a long time, but to never really play them in a tournament before Augusta shows the guy's got incredible ability, incredible skill. But at the same time, too, I mean, like, it's just like he does these things that are so bizarre. Sometimes you just say, go out and just play. It seems like he's done so many different theories and different ideas throughout his career. Like, I mean, he looked like a linebacker during COVID, and he tried to hit it 9 miles and just, you know, drive it as far as he could. Then he slimmed down and he changed things and went to live. And we kind of didn't hear from him then. Last summer, we started hearing he was playing good because I think his body type had gotten back to more what a golfer should look like. I guess the question with him is like, what does he still want to accomplish? I know he wants to win majors, but I think, does he want to play against the best players in the world? Because to me, I think if the LIV and the PGA Tour were ever to merge, I think he would be one of the guys who'd be most in favor of that, because I think he does crave that competition every week, and I think he just likes doing it in a different way to kind of get people riled up and get people's attention, and that's why I think he's similar to Aaron Rodgers in a lot of ways.
Dave, speaking of doing things differently, now you mentioned those irons. The story I heard is he made those irons himself with a 3D printer. Did you hear that?
I have heard stuff like that. I definitely have heard things like that. Who knows what this guy's up to? I don't think, I'm pretty sure he's not married. And I don't think he has any kids or anything like that. So he does have a lot of extra time on his hands. But even if you watch him, like if you watch the coverage last week with like Mike Tirico and the people from Golf Channel who were doing the pregame show where they show the guys hitting on the range there at Augusta, he is the most mechanical, technical of them all, maybe outside of Victor Hovland right now. And it's incredible to watch him, you know, go through everything, his whole process, you know, and there's so many technical things that he's thinking about now. He's got his left foot up in the air, like during his swing. So he's just like, there's so many things this guy has done differently. And I think that's why there's some people who really like that. Some people who like unique personalities. I think it fits. But at the end of the day in golf, like to me, if he can't putt like we saw on the weekend, he's not going to win a lot of big tournaments because I think he's got so many thoughts in his head. It's going to be really hard to make those big putts, especially on courses like Augusta where the greens are so tough and so fast.
The other thing he does that I'm curious about your opinion on this as a pro, David, is he is a single plane swing guy, and all his clubs, all his irons, all his clubs are the same length, as I understand it. I think that's a Mo Norman kind of approach. For people who don't know about Mo Norman, Google him sometime. You'll be astounded. But what do you think of that approach, Dave?
Yeah, that's a good point about kind of comparing him to Mo Norman. I mean, I think he's very similar. Like he might be the modern day Mo Norman in a lot of ways because he's so different and so eccentric in the way he thinks. And yeah, I think the problem with that swing, with it being so flat, is there's times where, you know, if you don't time it up right and your hands get too involved in the swing, you can hit shots that go way offline, especially with the speed that Bryson has, and we know how far he can hit it. But I think he's a guy that, you know, as much as he loves here's the question with Bryson. Does he like to compete or does he like to tinker more? That's the thing you got to find. That's why I think he took the money from Liv, because you know what? If he started tinkering too much, you'll lose your tour card. I mean, there's only 70 exempt spots into the FedEx Cup playoffs, and then the rest of the guys have to go into that fall series where they play those tournaments in the fall up against the football season where they're playing for, you know, their tour cards. So, I mean, Bryson, at the end of the day, I think was smart enough to know, hey, I got to get this guaranteed money in my pocket, so I always want a place to play, and I have, you know, the money. I'm set for a long time. But also, I think he looked at it like, you know, if I start tinkering too much and I lose my game, I'm going to be off the tour. Like we've seen it. Like look at Justin Thomas, how much he's struggling right now. Spieth, same thing. So you can lose it pretty quickly with the tour being as competitive as it is.
Hey, Dave, what'd you think about Tiger grinding through that horrific round on Saturday when he shot an 82 and then finishing it out on Sunday? That surprised you that he stuck it out?
No, I think he stuck it out because obviously he's got a lot of respect for Augusta in the Masters, and you know obviously the record of the cuts made consecutively there and all the times he did play. So I think I think his son being there, I think he wanted to show something to him, and I think too, he wants to show that he can still try to compete. But let's be honest, Chad. I mean, the next time Tiger is really relevant to me is probably when he turns 50 and he can take a cart and play in the Champions Tour, because there's no way he can beat these young guys. He doesn't have that ability level, and plus the injuries and everything else that he's put himself through and gone through. I mean, you can't go up against a Scotty Scheffler or a Ludwig or any of these young guys and say you're going to beat him with the mountain of injuries he's got. So yeah, you give him credit for trying. I mean, obviously he's going to try at Valhalla, to play the PGA where he's won before. But I mean, realistically, I mean, if all of the matters is him making the cut, I mean, his standards are so low. I mean, to me, if I were him, it's not that you're giving up, but you're just using this as almost like practice for the Champions Tour, because that's where if he can ride in a cart, he can be competitive there. But this stuff is way, way out of his league to be competing against these young guys who are in top physical shape and they're playing and practicing all the time.
Dave, you can settle something for me with your opinion. I talk about Tiger playing out of a cart all the time, and I believe he would be a great player, again, out of the cart. But a lot of people think he won't do that. Do you think he will play out of a cart?
Oh, I do, yeah. I think he's too competitive. And I think, too, there's a couple things. I think, number one, he wants to win again. I think he still wants to, compete, show his kids that he can compete, show the rest of the world he can still compete after 50. And then I think the other thing, too, is never forget he's gone to bat for the PGA Tour during this whole LIV thing, and the Champions Tour is obviously a subsidiary of the PGA Tour, so he's going to try to sell that tour to everyone. So now if he's playing, say, a handful of times a year in different parts of the country, you know what a shot in the arm that is for not only those tournaments, but the economy of those cities, restaurants, hotels, all these different businesses connected, the sponsors connected to these tournaments. That's huge. So to me, if Tiger Woods plays 5 times a year on the Champions Tour and he rides in a cart and he plays in tournaments in cities that have never seen him before, that is massive.
Well, Dave, we love talking golf with you. You got something else, Godfather?
I got one more story that's just coming through this afternoon. A newspaper in London is reporting. Now, I don't know about the truth of this, but they're reporting that a certain golfer who we never thought would do it, Rory McIlroy, is considering a $750 million offer from the LIV Tour. Do you believe it? Do you think it could happen? And if it is, it's got to be the biggest flip flop in history.
Oh yeah, no doubt, it would be the biggest flip flop ever in history for sure, guys. I think if he were to go, I think then the merger and all the talks between the LIV and the PGA Tour would be accelerated. That it would happen very soon. I mean, it would have this talk of like, they met a few weeks ago in the Bahamas, and all the talks are progressing. We don't have time for that anymore. If Rory goes, now the PGA Tour has to they have to say, hey, you know what? We got to join them. You can't beat them. We got to join them. I mean, the PGA Tour has a bow and arrow, and LIV has, they got a nuclear bomb. So, I mean, that's literally what it is at the end of the day. And I think, Rory, to me, there's probably a good chance he'll go. I think he's sort of bored with the PGA Tour. I think he went so all in to say, do all this stuff with the tour, and I don't know what has really gotten him. He's not playing his best golf right now, and I think he wants to see more of a world tour where you play some of the traditional events on the PGA Tour, some of the traditional events in Europe, and then you play some LIV type events with this team golf stuff. And you know what? That's probably where it's going. And I think the PGA Tour, as we know it, guys, is going to look a lot differently. And I think a lot of these guys are going to be playing more of like a world schedule. And I think the sad thing is Greg Norman wanted this years ago, and he's kind of getting what he wants. And it is what it is, man. I mean, it's all about money at the end of the day.
Well, Dave, we love talking golf with you. You are the man, and enjoy your night. And we look forward to talking with about the PGA with you here in the near future.
Awesome, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Love it. David Coleman, PGA Dave here on the Rip City Drive.
Next time he gives us some tips, I'm going to go take his tips to the bank, and I'm talking about the betting window.
I had a Dan Orlovsky moment there for a second, and I'm in pain now. I think I pushed too hard.
You deserve pain.
Might have a pink sock. That was painful. Did you like that? Do you think Dan Orlovsky, was that a fart or was that his windshield wiper? What do you think?
I think that was not the sound that any windshield wiper ever made in my car.
I watched the video over. I can't stop watching it. It's one of my favorites. The reaction from the crew was classic. Dan! It's one of the greatest things ever, man.
It was unmistakable.
Who was that? I need more farts on TV. Someone put a video up of Phil Simms dropping bomb. He dropped ass in the booth with Jim Nantz.
Can we please replay yours? Mike Shacker, did you get that?
He probably did. Shacker gets everything.
Yeah.
All right, we'll come back and hand out some high fives. I've been waiting for news to see if I got any high fives to hand out, but Shacker hasn't given me an update. You got the Rip City Drive. I love fried chicken. All right, Godfather, I'm going to give my high five out to Tiger Woods for putting up a career worst round of 82 on Saturday and finishing out the round to teach his son that, hey, we don't quit in this family. I like it. I'm a big fan of it. So high five to Tiger Woods. Who's going to get your high five?
I'm sorry, but I got to go with David Coleman. I that's just uncanny to take. He gives us the favorite, and he gives us the dark horse, and they finish 1-2. That you don't do any better than that.
Shacker?
Well, you gave a shout out to Caitlin Clark. You were shocked that she got picked first.
Uh-huh.
Well, getting picked second overall in the WNBA draft is Cameron Brink. She's now with the Los Angeles Sparks. High five.
Cameron Brink became a legend in my mind when she left the floor for the final time in her home game, looked over at the ref and said, bleep you. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, she did.
How many arrests were made in Eugene?
52 is my understanding.
I'd like a high five out for the arrest, too. Idiots.
52 high fives?
Okay. All right. Idiots clogging up the freeway.
Yeah.
Morons. Let's go out to Dylan in Newburgh. Dylan, welcome to the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Shad. What's on your mind?
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Fabulous.
Oh, good. Yeah, so thank goodness the Blazers season's over. That was a train wreck and a half. In terms of record-wise, where does this stack up as the worst season for the Blazers? I know in, wasn't it 71, 72? They only won 17 games, something like that was the worst season they had.
64 losses.
Other than that,
64, Dwight, is what you told me?
In the second year of the franchise was the worst year.
Yeah, so it's not far off from the worst in franchise history.
Yeah.
My God. Well, I'm going to ride or die with this team, so I'm going to keep watching them. But this.
Wait a second, Dylan.
Things get better from there.
Now, wait a second. You're a Jazz fan, so I know you're not going to ride and die with the Trailblazers. Come on now.
He's trying to get over on us.
Oh, I know. No, just I think things are going to get better from here. There's a lot of potential future. Hopefully they get a good draft pick in the lottery this year.
All right. Appreciate that. And in fact, he brought up a good point. These things are freaking hard to explain. So I got to pull it up to make sure that we understand that. So NBA draft lottery tiebreaker. So it's amazing that Portland somehow got the great fortune on Sunday with the Spurs winning, as did the Charlotte Hornets. And as a result, Portland came into a tie for the third spot in the draft order, which gives you the best chance to jump up and grab number one.
Yeah.
The top three teams have the same
odds.
Same odds. But when you're in a tie, they've got to do some things to decide who's going to be three, who's going to be four. So the tiebreaker is simple. The NBA's draw will decide the order they pick in the draft. However, for lottery teams, it's more complicated. If multiple lottery teams tie for the same record, all the draft lottery combinations are merged together and then split evenly. That's how it works. So basically, it's like a coin flip situation. That will determine the order, and then I think those shares are split between the Hornets and Blazers, and instead of being 14% chance, it'll be like a 13.3, 13.2 chance to jump up. And that's how it goes.
That's a decent chance. What you have to hope that if you don't get the top spot, that no one else bounces up into that top tier.
Yeah, so you remain at number three.
You don't want to get pushed back, which happens a lot.
Next year's draft is where it's at.
Yeah.
Cooper Flagg. Yeah, you want?
Have you seen him now?
Enough highlights. I didn't go to the event on Saturday because, well, frankly, I was basketball out. I was basketballed out.
I was across the way at the Winterhawks game Saturday night. Very entertaining.
Good for you. I was wondering about you on Friday because I knew there were people that stopped by Dr. Jack's. We were over there broadcasting, who were heading to the Winterhawks game.
Mm-hmm.
And I wondered, when was the last time the Godfather went? And I'm glad to hear you went on Saturday.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. They have a really nice team. Very fast.
Who'd you go with? David?
I went with a bunch of guys that usually go with this friend of ours, and he can't go anymore. So we kind of all went together and sent him. We sent him video and pictures.
Oh,
and stuff.
cool.
Yeah, it was.
Did
Kind of
Godbrother get in on the action?
No. I think he's busy. He's got business to do. He's got loose ends to tie up. He's a busy man.
Hey, Bruce, it's 5:52 on Monday evening here on the Rip City Drive.
Time check.
I love that.
What else did he? Oh, was it trivia contest he wanted, or what was
He
that?
likes trivia. It's just funny because I respect Bruce because he listens all the time.
Mhm.
So I take his input seriously. But the time check thing is just funny because we all have a freaking. I wear a watch, and I'm
I
like
do
a,
too.
I'm like a fossil in that regard because most people. Shacker, do you wear a watch or do you just go phone?
Phone only. I stopped wearing a watch when I got a phone.
I got the new iPhone, bigger, or I watch.
How much do you spend on that bad boy?
Oh, I think it was free. Chad.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. I think I know what the price was because they played the pricing game at the Blazer game the other night.
Well, let me tell you, Verizon has a deal right now where if you upgrade, you get the watch, the iPad, and the earpods.
Yeah,
if you upgrade your phone.
Yeah, I know. I finally have my phone paid off, and I told my provider to suck it because I'm tired of. I'm like, if I upgrade right now, is it really going to change my life? And I'm like, no. So what I did is I filed a claim and got a replacement phone for my current unit, which is much cheaper than buying a new unit. And I'm just going to stick it. I'm going to ride it out because I like having. It's nice to have a lease payment and everything else, right? I don't like paying $1 billion a month for phone service. That's all. So I'm happy with where I'm at.
Just put it on a credit card, then it's like free.
I do that with plenty of other things. It's just golf, whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll take care of it later. Disappointing efforts from both of us today, Godfather. All right. Big thanks to Michael Shacker, David Coleman.
Good show today, Chad. You ran a nice tight ship today.
Almost Conor McGregor. I was going to say Conor McGregor, but Connor Holden for joining the show.
Did a great job.
He enjoyed the Rite Aid size pro shop at the Masters.
And he liked that egg salad sandwich.
See you tomorrow.